Hi guys, my name is Roger, and ever since I was a teenager, I've always wanted to build my own car. I started this channel to see if an average person, like me, can design and build their own mid-engine car. If you like what you see here in my videos, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you know someone who you think might be interested in my videos, please share the videos with them. I'll be adding a new video every week, and with that out of the way, let's get started with this week's video. So I have an update for you this morning before I get started. The linear actuators showed up yesterday. They are at least a week and a half earlier than I was expecting, which is great. I know I'd mentioned before that I bought this, but I don't know if I actually showed it to you. This converts 12 volts to 24 volts. These linear actuators run off 24 volts. And I went to a 24 volt one because the speed is faster and they are stronger. Now there's two good points to this actuator and one that I'm gonna have to work around a little, but I don't think it's an issue. The two good points are it is incredibly quiet, which I wasn't expecting, and it is incredibly strong, which I was expecting because of the gear ratio. The only downside is this motor is a little larger than I was visualizing, although it did have dimensions on the web page I ordered from. Good looking actuator, I'm happy with it, and we'll have to make a circuit to wire up this 24 volt power supply, and this has internal limit switches. I will definitely use one of them, but I may have to make an external limit switch for when the door opens. I'm not sure I'm going to use the full travel on this just yet. A couple of other things. I made a couple of purchases yesterday. I was going to borrow a tubing roller from work, but the one at work is a lot more expensive and does a larger range of tubing, I guess, but the base is twice as wide, and the width of that base determines how much drop or dead space you get on the end of the tube, how much isn't bent. So I decided to buy this cheap Harbor Freight one because it only has about 6 inches on the end of the tube that doesn't get bent, and the less waste is something that I needed. It's a little easier to calculate and figure how long and where to place my arcs this way. So I just unboxed this and set it up. I'm ready to roll some tubing and try to put some arcs in it. The arcs I'm doing are very gradual anyway. They're not extreme, so I'm hoping they're easy to roll, but we'll find out soon. And another thing, instead of buying the expensive tubing bender, I decided to pick up this pipe bender. I know a lot of people have no luck bending tubing with these at all, but I picked this up dirt cheap, and I've watched videos online of how to modify these to bend tubing successfully, and my thoughts are I'm going to go ahead and roll all of my arcs with a tubing roller, and then I'm going to try to bend one tube with this. The reason I wanted to try this first is because I'm going to put sand in the tubes to help them keep from kinking and compressing, and all of my bends are 45 degrees or less. They're somewhere between 42 and 45 degrees, so I'm not actually bending these tubes very far. And I've seen some success on some YouTube videos doing it this way, and I thought I would give it a shot myself. Worst case is I ruin one tube on one bend and I go ahead and order an expensive bender and finish the rest of them, or the first one is successful and I continue and do all 5 bends. But wanted to give it a shot since I'm only doing 45 degree bends. It increases my chances of being successful, and I thought it would be worth a shot. But that's where we're at this morning, and let's go ahead and get started trying to roll some arcs in these tubes. Well, yesterday I started off by bending arcs on two tubes to shape or to form the rear roll bar to match the roof line. And those two arcs turned out pretty good. Not perfect, but close enough I was going to use them. This is one of the tubes with the arcs on it. You can kind of see the gradual arc. And once I had those two tubes formed, I tried to bend a 45-degree angle on one of them using the pipe bender, and the two different theories or methods shown on YouTube how to bend tubing successfully with a pipe bender, and neither one worked. There were massive failures. This is the first one I tried to bend, and you can see how it crushed and kinked the tubing really bad, even though this tube is filled with sand and packed and has plugs in both ends. It was a massive failure, so I tried again this morning with the second method, which was using an undersized die and letting it just ride on the edge of the tube and not trying to push it from the bottom, and it failed also. This is what it looks like. So massive failure on both of those. Ruined an entire day's work and a $100 piece of tubing. And worse than that is I'm not quite sure how I'm going to form these now. I am stuck to the point of either buying an $850 tubing bender or hiring someone to make the bends. I have found a local company that makes roll cages for race cars, and I'm going to contact them tomorrow and see how far behind they are and what they charge to do this kind of work. If I have to pay $850 worth of labor, I might as well just buy a bender, but if it's half that, I'll take it to them and let them do it since they're the professionals. But for now, I'm stopping on the roll cage, and I don't have many things I can do today, but one thing I can, and I want to go ahead and try, I guess, is these two linear actuators. I want to try to mount one in the passenger's door and come up with just a preliminary mounting bracket for today, just to test this and see how easy it lifts the door and the time it takes to lift and close the door. The mounting attach point's a little larger and different here on this end, so I may have to come up with a different mounting bracket on the door hinge itself. And then I've got to figure out if I'm going to run these with the motors facing up, trying to get them hidden up underneath the bottom of the dash, or facing down and hide it in a little recessed well in the floor pan. But one of those two. But let's get started working on that today and see how far we get and see what it looks like. Well, this week didn't go quite as planned. I started off this week thinking that I would be working on roll cage, finishing the roll cage up, or at least getting to a good point on the roll cage. And after I tried to bend the tubes and was unsuccessful, I decided to take them to a local race shop to have them bent. And today is Saturday. I actually took one of my forms to him last Tuesday, and he is supposed to have that piece bent and back to me this coming Tuesday. And once I test fit that and see that he's able to bend this tube to my pattern successfully and I'm happy with his work, then I'm going to take him the other two forms for the on each side of the doors, like the A-pillars, and have him bend those two also. But while he is working on the roll cage, I have been working on the motorizing the doors, the linear actuators, installing those. And I have one here on the passenger's door installed and working, and I want to show you what I came up with. I'm actually, instead of the damper I was using and the smaller, cheaper linear actuator, both connected here to this point, but just because of the size and shape and stroke length and everything of this linear actuator, it needed to mount here on top of this hinge and further in to the pivot point. And this is where it will mount, and most likely I will continue this bolt down and go through the top and the bottom of this hinge. If not, it's going to put an unnecessary amount of torque on it. So I believe I'll increase this bolt and go all the way through, but for now this is working fine. And you can see what I've done here. I've welded in this brace, a mounting plate here that is braced quite a bit because there's a lot of force on that. And that pivots back and forth as the door opens and closes just a few degrees. This bolt obviously won't be hanging down, but this is up underneath the dash above your feet. Your feet are below this when they slide in and out. There's plenty of access room here. So don't see any issues with this. This motor is very quiet. This door raises and lowers. And although it is not perfect yet, it's pretty close. The only issue I have is the pin is not wanting to ride in this track successfully every time. Sometimes it rides on the front and jumps in the track. I need to weld another piece of metal here as a guide for this pin to engage with earlier before it gets down into the locking part and cinches in. But I'll add that soon. But for now, I wanted to show you how this motor works, how quiet it is, and the transition time or the speed it takes to open and close the door. So let me show you that. Well, that's what it looks like opening and closing. It's fairly quiet, and it is about 4 seconds transition time, which I can live with that. That's not too bad. And I guess that's gonna about do it for this week. And next week we'll be back finishing up motorizing the other door and starting on the installing of the actual roll cage. But I will see you guys again in 1 week.